Got a poster on TikTok asking about a 3-day notice to pay rent with incorrect amounts on the notice, and that notice also includes late fees. Is that an invalid 3-day notice? Hi, my name is Rob Wells. I'm the Landlord Warrior on TikTok and YouTube. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to our videos. Now, I always keep telling California landlords, you'll hear me on this channel all the time. You know, there are very stringent rules regarding with 3-day notices to pay rent or quit and what can be on those notices, including that rent can't be, you can't put more than 12 months of past due rent on said notice. The notice actually, the code section for the Code of Civil Procedure, section 1161, subdivision 2, limits a landlord as to what rent can be put on said notice, and that rent has to have accrued within the last 12 months. You have to serve the notice within 365 days or 1 year. Okay, that being said, the law has always been the only rent that could be put on the 3-day notice is delinquent rent. So if the landlord has an incorrect amount of rent that's actually owed, like they forgot to factor in some tenant payments that should have went to the rent, that could be a defense to an eviction action. Also, too, we see a lot of landlords put in late fees in their 3-day notices, and depending on the terms of the lease, such as if the late fees are deemed additional rent or not, may play a factor in if those late fees can be added to a 3-day notice to pay rent or quit. If they're not labeled as additional rent, generally speaking, you can't put late fees on a 3-day notice to pay rent or quit. Instead, the landlord must use a 3-day notice to perform covenants or conditions or quit. And depending if you're subject to the Tenants Protection Act or not, you may have to serve 2 notices. You may have to serve your notice telling your tenant, hey, you owe me late fees, pursuant to paragraph 5 of the lease agreement. These additional non-rent monetary charges are due, and if you don't pay them, we can give you a 3-day notice to quit for failing to pay those fees. Okay, so your mileage is going to vary. It's going to also vary too if you're in a local municipality that requires a warning notice, such as as under the state's Tenants Protection Act of 2019. A lot of local municipalities, also put requirements in what needs to be contained on a 3-day notice before you can go to court as well too, or cite the local ordinance, that type of thing. So your mileage is going to vary. You need to be very cautious on what type of how you calculated the rent and what is being put on a 3-day notice to pay rent, because only rent can go on a 3-day notice to pay rent, no other charges. Okay, so if you're in doubt, you might want to ask landlord's counsel and to review your lease and to find out what is the appropriate charge to be put on your 3-day notice for rent before going to court, because you don't want to find out later 6 weeks down the road that your notice is defective. You got to start your case over again, costing more time and expense and so forth. So if you're a landlord in the Northern California area and you're facing a non-paying tenant situation, that type of deal, or they're not paying charges, and you need some help, feel free to reach out. We might be able to help out. Put your comments, questions down below. Until next time, folks, I'll talk to you then. Thanks.